KJV, NIV, TLV, CSB, ESV, NRSV, TNIV, NASB, ABC, XYZ, 123. The sheer volume of Bible translations can be a bewildering alphabet soup. In this episode, we will wade through the treacle of Bible translations and establish some principles for selecting a Bible translation that is appropriate for you. On this episode of Ancient Egypt and the Bible. There is a bewildering selection of Bible translations. How does one choose among them all? Some of the proliferation of translations has been the result of publisher profit motives, but by no means all. Translating the Bible into English carries with it some unique challenges. The English language is currently undergoing a phase of rapid change. As such, the NIV, the New International Version, Translation Committee, currently creates a new translation every 5 years in order to account just for the changes to the English language. Furthermore, translation philosophies and manuscript selections add a mind-boggling set of permutations that only increase the number of translations on the market. But what translation is best? Frankly, the best translation is the one that gets read. With that said, let's begin with the fact that not everyone has the same goals when they buy a Bible translation. Do you want a Bible for serious study? Do you want a Bible for apologetics or scholarly work? How important is it for you to read a translation based upon the best Greek and Hebrew manuscripts? Do you want a Bible for personal devotions? Are you giving a Bible to an unbelieving friend who has never set foot in a church? Do you want to read a Bible in modern English? How you answer these questions will determine the choices you make when selecting a Bible translation. Now, we have to recognize that ultimately every Bible translation is an interpretation. All English Bibles are translations from a selected set of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek manuscripts. A translator reads the original languages and interprets the text into English words and sentences. So it's a usually scholarly interpretation, but it is an interpretation. The translator is quite literally reading in one language and interpreting it and transforming it into the target language, which is English. And while reading the Bible in its original languages is always preferable, it's not always feasible. And for the vast majority of English speakers, translations offer the only opportunity to read the scriptures. So this little guide is dedicated to helping you figure out which translation of the Bible is going to be best for you. Now, we're going to kind of set ourselves in the mind of the translators as we sort of begin to try to grapple with how to choose a translation. And when a Bible translator sets out to translate the Bible, he's gonna ask himself, certain questions, and I think those questions can be very helpful in helping you select a Bible translation. And perhaps the first decision a Bible translator is going to do is they're going to ask what source text are they going to use. Now, the King James Version, KJV, family of translations is based upon the so-called Textus Receptus of Erasmus. And really, when we talk about this, we're talking really New Testament documents here, not the Old Testament. The New Testament Greek documents here, the Textus Receptus, is a group of 5 non-overlapping Byzantine Greek texts with missing bits, including most of the book of Revelation. Now, when the Textus Receptus was edited, the missing bits were back translated from the Latin Vulgate into Greek. Now, the Textus Receptus is not exactly the best of manuscripts to base a translation upon. And most modern translations are often translated from the Nestle-Aland, which is a critical edition of all the available Greek manuscripts. Personally, given a choice, and this is my opinion, I find that the Nestle-Aland offers a better set of New Testament manuscripts with their variants from which a translator can do his translation. Now, the next question that a translator will often pose is he going to do a translation or a paraphrase? Paraphrases are edited using a colloquial form of English. Paraphrases are often appropriate for making difficult texts easier to understand, but they are also not appropriate for serious Bible study. The problem with paraphrases is that by being so colloquial, they can distort the biblical text. Examples of well-known paraphrases are The Message by Eugene Peterson and the New Living Translation, the NLT. For most people, they will want a true translation over a paraphrase. There are a variety of considerations for a true translation. For example, what level of English is appropriate? The New International Version, NIV, is appropriate for those with only a high school level of English, while the NASB, the New American Standard Bible, and the King James Version, KJV, is really only appropriate for those who have college-level reading skills. Now, the next consideration is translation methodology. And this basically breaks down into 2 categories. Formal equivalence, sometimes called a word-for-word translation, versus dynamic equivalence, which is a thought-for-thought translation. Formal equivalence tries to stay true to the grammar, syntax, and vocabulary of the original texts, while dynamic equivalence tries to capture the thoughts of the text and translates the thoughts into English. The American Standard Version, ASV, the English Standard Version, ESV, and the King James Version are formal equivalence translations, while the New International Version, NIV, is a dynamic equivalence translation. Recently, some translations have taken a more moderate approach, trying to embrace the strengths of both approaches. An example of this is the Christian Standard Bible, CSB, which I'll note is actually a very good translation. Finally, some translations are not actually true translations, but revisions. Revisions are based upon an older English translation that has been updated with new readings based upon current scholarship and modernized English. This might seem like a substandard way to do an English translation, but revisions are often some of the best, most accurate translations. While it may seem counterintuitive, reevaluating an existing translation can be done critically and provides an opportunity to reflect upon the accuracy of a translation. Examples of revisions include the New King James Version revised from the King James Version, the New Revised Standard Version, the NRSV, revised from the Revised Standard Version, the RSV, and the New American Standard Bible, NASB, revised from the American Standard Version, ASV. Many revisions are appropriate for apologetics and scholarly work because they tend to be very precise in their translations. So, when selecting a translation, you need to ask yourself the following questions. What is your reason for buying a translation? Is it important what source texts are being used? Is it a translation or a paraphrase? What level of English is important? Is it formal equivalence or dynamic equivalence? And is a revised translation preferable? So that covers our overview of how to select a Bible translation. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting and informative. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time on Ancient Egypt and the Bible.